The heat in East Los Angeles didn't just sit on you, it owned you. It was a physical weight, pressing down on the corrugated tin roof of Miller's Auto Repair, turning the small, grease-stained garage into an oven. Lucas Miller wiped a streak of motor oil from his forehead, leaving a dark smudge against his pale, sun-weathered skin. He was 39 years old, but the lines around his eyes and the gray dusting his temples told a story of a man who had lived 2 lifetimes in one. He was lean, built of wire and whipcord muscle, the kind of strength you get from wrestling alternators and rusted bolts for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. "Dad, you're dripping on the invoices," a voice chirped from the corner office. Lucas looked up, a tired smile breaking through his grime. Sophie, his 13-year-old daughter, was perched on a stool that was too high for her, surrounded by stacks of paper. She had his dark eyes and her mother's stubborn chin. "Sorry, Soph," Lucas called out, his voice raspy from inhaling brake dust. "Just trying to get Mrs. Rodriguez's transmission to shift past second gear. It's fighting me." "Mrs. Rodriguez hasn't paid for the oil change from March yet," Sophie reminded him, waving a pink slip of paper. She was the brains of the operation. She had to be. Lucas had a heart that was too big for his bank account. "She needs the car to get to her dialysis, sophomore. We'll bill her when her check comes in." Sophie sighed, the exaggerated sigh of a teenager who believes she is the only adult in the room. "We need groceries, Dad. And I need new cleats for soccer. The tape is peeling off my old ones." Lucas felt that familiar pang in his chest, the dull ache of the single dad guilt. It was a constant companion, louder than the rattle of the air compressor. He walked over to the office door, wiping his hands on a rag that was already black with grease. "I know, kiddo," he said softly. "This job finishes today. That's cash in hand. We'll get those cleats. I promise." He always promised. And he always delivered, even if it meant he skipped lunch for a week or fixed a neighbor's plumbing at midnight for extra cash. The garage was a relic. The concrete floor was a map of cracks, stained with the fluids of 1,000 dead cars. The lift hydraulic groaned like a dying beast. But it was theirs. It was the sanctuary he had built after his wife, Sarah, died 5 years ago. It was the place where he hid from a world that saw him as nothing more than a man with dirty fingernails and a GED. Lucas returned to the transmission, losing himself in the mechanics. He understood machines. Machines were honest. If a gear stripped, it was because of stress or friction. If an engine overheated, it was a lack of coolant. There were no hidden agendas, no pity, no judgment. Unlike people, around 2 p.m., the atmosphere in the garage changed. The ambient noise of the street, sirens, shouting, reggaeton blasting from passing Civics, seemed to drop away, replaced by the low, expensive hum of a precision-engineered engine. Lucas didn't look up immediately. He assumed it was lost traffic from the highway detour. But then the hum stopped directly in front of his bay door. The silence that followed was heavy. Lucas straightened up, his vertebrae popping. Standing in the entrance of his shop, framed by the blinding afternoon sun, was a car that cost more than the entire city block. A sleek, silver Bentley Flying Spur. It looked like a spaceship that had crash-landed in a landfill. Steam was hissing discreetly from under the hood. "You have got to be kidding me," Lucas muttered. The driver's door opened. A woman stepped out. She was sharp angles and cold elegance. She wore a white pantsuit that remained miraculously crisp despite the heat. Her heels clicked on the cracked pavement with authority. She removed her sunglasses, revealing ice-blue eyes that swept over the garage with a mix of confusion and distaste. This was Evelyn Sterling, CEO of Sterling Gin, a biotech mogul, and a woman who likely hadn't touched a door handle herself in a decade. But Lucas didn't focus on her. His eyes were drawn to the passenger side. The passenger door opened slowly. A young woman, perhaps 19 or 20, began the arduous process of exiting. It wasn't a fluid motion. It was a battle. First, a pair of heavy, metallic crutches hit the ground. Then, legs encased in thick, bulky, robotic-looking braces swung out. Lucas froze. He knew those braces. Not that specific brand, perhaps, but the mechanics of them. The geometry of pain. The girl, Maya, hauled herself up. She was beautiful, with dark curls and delicate features, but her face was twisted in a mask of chronic, exhausted agony. She didn't look at the garage. She looked at the ground. as if measuring the distance she had to traverse as a soldier measures a minefield. "Excuse me." Evelyn's voice cut through the air. It was a boardroom voice. "Our navigation system malfunctioned, and the car has overheated. My driver is unavailable. Is there anyone competent here?" Lucas grabbed a cleaner rag and walked forward, wiping his hands. "That would be me, ma'am. Lucas Miller." Evelyn looked at his grease-stained jumpsuit, then at the half-disassembled Honda behind him. "Is there a manager?" "I'm the owner, the manager, and the janitor," Lucas said, his tone dry. He wasn't intimidated by money. He'd seen plenty of rich people with broken cars. They walked just as helplessly as anyone else. "Pop the hood." Evelyn hesitated, then gestured for him to proceed. Lucas opened the Bentley's hood. A wave of glycol-scented steam hit him. "Burst hose," he diagnosed instantly. "Common in this heat, even for a Bentley." Plastic coupling cracked. "How long?" Evelyn demanded. "I can jury-rig a fix in 20 minutes to get you to a dealership." "To fix it right? I need to order the part." 2 days. 20 minutes will have to do," Evelyn said, checking a watch that cost more than Lucas's house. "We have a specialist appointment in Santa Monica at 4. You can wait inside." Lucas gestured to the office. "It's got AC. It's not much, but it's cool." Evelyn looked at Maya. The girl was leaning heavily on her crutches, sweat beading on her upper lip. She looked like she was about to collapse. "Fine," Evelyn said. Lucas watched as they moved. He saw the way Evelyn hovered, protective, terrified, controlling. But mostly, he watched Maya walk. Click whir, drag, wince. Click whir, drag, wince. Every step was a fight. Her hips hiked up violently to swing her legs forward. Her spine twisted. It wasn't just walking, it was a torture session. Lucas felt a ghost pain in his own back. He remembered his younger brother, Ben. He remembered the motorcycle accident, the paralysis, the years of innovative braces that were essentially medieval torture devices wrapped in carbon fiber. He remembered the promise he made to Ben before the infection took him. "If I can ever fix this for someone else, I will." He shouldn't say anything. He was a mechanic. She was a billionaire. It was none of his business. But as Maya passed him, he heard a small, involuntary whimper escape her lips as her left brace locked into place. "Your left knee cam is sticking," Lucas said aloud. Maya stopped. Evelyn turned, eyes narrowing. "Excuse me." "The brace," Lucas said, pointing with a wrench. "The left knee joint. It's engaging the lock about 3 degrees too late in the swing phase. That's why you have to hike your hip so high to get it to clear the ground. It's throwing your whole spine out of alignment." Silence stretched in the humid air. Sophie, watching from the office door, held her breath. "These are custom prototypes from the leading orthopedics lab in Zurich," Evelyn said, her voice dropping to a dangerous chill. "They were designed by Dr. Eris Thorne himself. I hardly think a local mechanic would understand the engineering." "Physics is physics, lady," Lucas shrugged, though his heart was hammering. "Gravity doesn't care how much you paid for the metal. If the center of gravity is off, the machine fails. Right now, that machine is fighting her, not helping her." Maya looked up. For the first time, her eyes met Lucas's. They weren't angry. They were shocked. "He's right," Maya whispered. Her voice was raspy, dry. "Maya, don't," Evelyn warned. "No, Mom, he's right," Maya insisted, turning her body with difficulty. "I've been telling Dr. Thorne for 6 months that the left side feels heavy, like it's dragging. He said it was muscle atrophy." Lucas stepped closer, ignoring Evelyn's glare. He crouched down, keeping a respectful distance, and looked at the hydraulic piston on the brace. "See this wear pattern on the piston shaft?" Lucas pointed to a tiny scratch in the metal. "It's rubbing. The tolerance is too tight for the heat expansion. You're in California, not Switzerland. The metal expands. The piston binds. You're dragging 10 pounds of dead weight with every step." Maya looked down at her own legs as if seeing them for the first time. "You can see that?" "I fix things that move," Lucas said simply. "Cars, bikes, people are just biological machines." "Can you fix it?" Maya asked. The desperation in her voice was raw, a sharp hook that caught Lucas right in the chest. "Maya," Evelyn snapped. "We are not letting a mechanic touch medical-grade equipment." "Mom, I'm in pain." Maya's voice cracked, rising to a shout. "I am in pain every single second of every single day. Dr. Thorne just gives me more pills. This guy, he actually sees the problem." Evelyn froze. The mask of the CEO slipped, revealing a terrified mother who had spent millions trying to save her daughter and failed. She looked at Lucas, analyzing him, looking for the scam, the hustle. If you touch it and break it, Evelyn hissed, I will sue you until your grandchildren are born in debt. Lucas stood up, wiping his hands again. He looked her dead in the eye. If I don't touch it, she walks in pain for another day. You want to take that risk, or do you want to let me turn a set screw? The office was cramped. Sophie had cleared off her homework, offering her stool to Maya. Evelyn stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching Lucas like a hawk circling a field mouse. Lucas knelt before Maya. I'm going to touch the brace, not you. Okay. Maya nodded, biting her lip. Okay. Lucas pulled out a set of precision Allen keys and a small laser level he used for aligning drive shafts. He didn't treat the brace like a medical device. He treated it like a high-performance suspension system. Sophie, hand me the caliper, Lucas said softly. Sophie slapped the tool into his hand instantly. They had a rhythm. The problem isn't the design, Lucas murmured, half to himself, half to Maya. The design is brilliant. It's the tuning. They tuned it for a robot, not a human. A robot walks perfectly symmetrical. You don't. You favor your right side because of the pain. The brace is trying to force you to be symmetrical, and you're fighting it. Exactly, Maya breathed. It feels like arm wrestling with my legs. I'm going to adjust the release point on the knee, Lucas said. And I'm going to change the camber on the ankle. Just a millimeter. He worked fast. His hands, usually rough with heavy tools, were incredibly delicate. He adjusted the tension springs. He filed down a tiny burr of metal on the joint that was causing the friction. He ignored the warranty void if removed stickers. Evelyn watched, her breath caught in her throat. She noticed something. He wasn't looking at Maya with pity. He wasn't looking at her with the tragic awe most people had for the billionaire's disabled daughter. He was looking at the problem. He was focused, professional, and oddly gentle. Okay, Lucas said after 10 minutes. Stand up. Slowly. Maya gripped the edge of the desk. She pushed up. Usually, this was the moment she braced for the spike of pain in her lower back. She squeezed her eyes shut. She stood. The click of the brace was softer. The legs straightened. Maya opened her eyes. She took a step, then another. The left leg swung forward freely, without the hitch she had grown used to. Oh, she whispered. How is it? Evelyn stepped forward, her hands hovering. It's quiet, Maya said. Tears welled up in her eyes. Mom, the grinding is gone. My back, it's not screaming. She took a lap around the small office. It wasn't perfect, she still had her disability, but the mechanical resistance, the unnecessary pain, was gone. Lucas stood up, cracking his back. I adjusted the timing. It's working with your limp now, assisting the motion instead of correcting it. Maya stopped in front of him. She was tall when she stood straight. She looked at Lucas, and for a moment, the class divide between the mechanic in the greased suit and the heiress in the silk blouse vanished. Thank you, she said. Lucas nodded, feeling heat rise in his cheeks. Just doing my job. Now, let me fix that radiator hose so you can get out of here. An hour later, the Bentley was purring. Evelyn stood by the open driver's door, her checkbook in hand. How much, she asked. For the car and the adjustment. $200 for the hose and coolant, Lucas said. Labor on the brace is free. I was just tightening a screw. Evelyn paused. She was used to people padding bills, trying to extract value from her. Mr. Miller, that brace cost $80,000. You fixed a flaw that top doctors missed. Do not undervalue yourself. She wrote a check and handed it to him. Lucas looked at it. $5,000. He tried to hand it back. This is too much. I can't accept this. Take it, Evelyn said, her voice softer than before. Buy your daughter those soccer cleats she needs. Lucas looked at Sophie, who was watching from the doorway. He swallowed his pride. Thank you. One more thing, Evelyn said, leaning against the car door. She looked out of place in this neighborhood, yet she didn't seem in a rush to leave anymore. My daughter. She hasn't smiled in 2 years. Today she smiled. You have a gift, Mr. Miller. An intuitive understanding of mechanics that I haven't seen in my own R&D department. I just listened to the machine, Lucas said. If you have ideas on how to improve it further, Evelyn handed him a sleek business card. Call me. Directly. Not the assistant line. As the Bentley drove away, disappearing into the haze of Los Angeles, Lucas stood holding the check. Dad, Sophie squealed, running to him. $5,000. We can pay the rent for 3 months. Lucas hugged her side. Yeah, baby. We can. But his mind wasn't on the money. It was on the girl's legs. He had seen the design. He knew he could do better. He knew he could make something lighter, stronger. He pulled a crumpled notepad from his back pocket and started sketching. 2 weeks passed. The money helped, but money burns fast when you have debts. Lucas couldn't sleep. He spent his nights in the garage, fueled by cheap instant coffee. He had salvaged parts from the junkyard, high-grade aluminum from a wrecked Audi chassis, carbon fiber scraps from a tuner shop down the street. He was building a new brace. He told himself it was just a hobby, a challenge. But deep down, he knew it was because he couldn't get the image of Maya's pain-twisted face out of his head. And maybe, just maybe, he couldn't forget the intensity of Evelyn's blue eyes when she realized he wasn't a fool. One rainy Tuesday evening, a black sedan pulled up. It wasn't the Bentley. Maya was in the back seat. Her driver helped her out. She looked worse than before. Pale, dark circles under her eyes. Maya. Lucas wiped his hands, jogging out into the rain. It broke, Maya said, her voice trembling. The other side. The hinge snapped. Dr. Thorne took it back for repairs, said it would take 6 weeks. He gave me this loaner. She gestured to a clunky, plastic monstrosity on her leg. I can't walk, Lucas. I can barely stand. She was soaking wet. Lucas didn't hesitate. He scooped her up. She was surprisingly light, and carried her into the garage, Sophie running ahead to open the door. He set her down on the old leather sofa in the office. Where is your mom? Lucas asked. Tokyo. Business, Maya shivered. I told the driver to bring me here. You're the only one who actually did anything. Lucas looked at the plastic brace. It was garbage. Standard issue insurance junk. I can't fix this one, Maya. It's cheap plastic. If I drill it, it shatters. Maya put her face in her hands. Then I'm stuck in the chair. Lucas looked at the corner of the garage, where a tarp covered his late-night project. He looked at Sophie. Sophie nodded, her eyes wide. I have something, Lucas said slowly. It's not FDA approved. It's not tested. I built it out of car parts and aerospace scrap. But the geometry is right. Maya looked up. Show me. Lucas pulled the tarp. Underneath was an exoskeleton leg brace. It looked raw, industrial, stripped of all white plastic coverings. It was polished aluminum and matte black carbon. It looked like something out of Mad Max, but elegant. I used a variable valve damper from a Ducati motorcycle for the knee, Lucas explained nervously. It adapts to your speed. The faster you move, the stiffer it gets for support. When you sit, it releases instantly. Put it on me, Maya commanded. Maya, if this hurts you, put it on. The fitting took an hour. It was intimate work. Lucas had to measure her thigh, strap the harness around her hips. He was respectful, clinical, but there was a tenderness in his touch that Maya wasn't used to. Doctors touched her like she was a specimen. Lucas touched her like she was precious cargo. When the last buckle clicked, Maya sat on the edge of the workbench. It feels light, she said. It's 4 pounds lighter than your Swiss one, Lucas said. Titanium alloy screws. Maya lowered herself to the floor. She stood. There was no sound. No robotic whirring. The Ducati damper worked silently. She took a step. The brace moved with her fluidly. She took another. Then she walked to the door. She turned around, her face stunned. I can run, she said. Whoa, slow down. Lucas laughed, catching her arm. Let's stick to walking. But she was laughing. It was a sound that transformed the gloomy garage. Lucas, I can feel the floor. I don't feel the weight. Suddenly, the office door banged open. Evelyn Sterling stood there, dripping wet, flanked by 2 security guards. She looked furious. She had clearly flown back from Tokyo and tracked her daughter's phone. Get your hands off my daughter, Evelyn shouted. Mom, wait. Maya stepped in front of Lucas. Look, Maya walked towards her mother. Smoothly, without the cane. Evelyn stopped. Her bag dropped from her hand. She looked at the strange, industrial contraption on Maya's leg. She looked at the motorcycle valve. She looked at Lucas, who was standing there with a wrench, looking guilty. What is that? Evelyn whispered. A prototype, Lucas said. Made from junk. Evelyn walked around Maya. She touched the carbon fiber. She saw the welding. Perfect, stack of dimes, welds that only a master fabricator could execute. She looked at Lucas. The anger drained out of her, replaced by a profound, shaking shock. You built this? Here. Yes. Evelyn looked at the security guards. Wait outside. She turned to Lucas. The air in the room shifted. It was no longer a confrontation. Do you have any idea what you've done, Mr. Miller? Evelyn asked, her voice trembling. You've just rendered a billion-dollar industry obsolete with a motorcycle part. The rain battered the roof. Sophie had been sent upstairs to the small apartment above the garage to watch TV. Downstairs, the atmosphere was surreal. Evelyn Sterling was sitting on a milk crate, drinking cheap red wine from a paper cup. Lucas was sitting on a tire. Maya was asleep on the sofa, exhausted but wearing the device, refusing to take it off. I assumed you were a hustler, Evelyn admitted, swirling the wine. The alcohol had flushed her pale cheeks. She looked softer, younger. A single dad looking for a payout. I am a single dad, Lucas said, taking a sip of his beer. But I prefer to work for my money. Charity feels like debt. Why? Evelyn gestured to the brace. Why do this? You don't know us. Lucas looked at his hands. My brother, Ben. He was paralyzed. I watched the experts bankrupt my parents with equipment that didn't work. I watched him lose his dignity. I promised him I'd figure it out one day. I was too late for him. But not for Maya. Evelyn looked at him for a long time. The silence stretched, charged with something new. It wasn't just gratitude. It was recognition. Two lonely people who had built walls around themselves. Him with grease, her with money, suddenly seeing through the cracks. My husband left when Maya got her diagnosis, Evelyn said quietly. He couldn't handle the imperfection. He wanted a trophy family. So I built an empire to protect her. I thought money could fix anything. But I couldn't buy this. She pointed to the sleeping girl. Peace. I couldn't buy her peace. She looked at Lucas. Her eyes locked onto his. You're a good man, Lucas Miller. Lucas felt a jolt of electricity. And you're not as cold as you pretend to be, Evelyn Sterling. She laughed, a genuine, throaty sound. Don't tell my board of directors. She stood up, slightly unsteady. Lucas reached out to steady her. His hand caught her elbow. The touch lingered. They were close. He could smell her expensive perfume, jasmine and rain, mixing with the scent of motor oil. For a second, just a second, he thought she might lean in. The tension was thick, a magnetic pull between two opposite worlds. We need to formalize this, Evelyn whispered, stepping back, her professionalism returning like armor. We need to patent this. I want to fund you. A lab. Real equipment. No more junkyard scraps. I don't need a lab, Lucas said. I just need a milling machine and good coffee. You're getting a lab, Evelyn ordered. And you're getting a partner. Me. The next month was a whirlwind. Evelyn bought the empty warehouse next to the garage. She filled it with CNC machines, 3D printers, and top-tier materials. Lucas Miller, the mechanic, became Lucas Miller, lead engineer of Miller Mobility. But success draws wolves. Dr. Eris Thorne, the creator of Maya's original braces and a man with deep connections to the FDA and the medical board, didn't take the news well. When Evelyn announced she was dropping Thorne's contract in favor of an internal project led by a mechanic, Thorne went on the offensive. It started with a cease and desist letter. Then, the media hit pieces. Billionaire endangers daughter with garage experiments. The headlines read. The mechanic playing God. Reporters swarmed the garage. They dug into Lucas's past. They found his debts, his lack of a degree. They painted him as a dangerous amateur preying on a desperate mother. Lucas tried to ignore it, focusing on the work. He and Maya were refining the Miller strut. Sophie was helping with the coding for the microsensors. They were a team, but the pressure was mounting. Child Protective Services showed up one day, alerted by an anonymous tip about Sophie living in an unsafe industrial environment. That broke Lucas. He stormed into Evelyn's sleek office in the city, slamming the newspaper on her desk. They're coming for my daughter, Evelyn. I can take the insults, but if I lose Sophie... Evelyn stood up. She looked tired. The battle was wearing on her too. I handled CPS, Lucas. My lawyers blocked them. You aren't losing Sophie. I can't do this, Lucas said, his voice cracking. I'm just a guy who fixes cars. I don't belong in this world of sharks. Evelyn walked around the desk. She took his rough hands in hers. You are not just a guy who fixes cars. You are the only man I've met in 20 years who has integrity. Thorne is scared. The industry is scared. Because you solved in a month what they couldn't solve in a decade because they were too busy protecting their patents. She squeezed his hands. We have a hearing next week. The medical board wants to ban the device. Thorne will be there. The press will be there. If we lose, they take the patent, and they might charge you with practicing medicine without a license. And if we win? If we win, Evelyn smiled fiercely, we change everything. Trust me, Lucas. Please. Lucas looked at her. He saw the woman who had sat on a milk crate and drank cheap wine with him. He saw the mother fighting for her child. Okay, he said. Let's go to war. The hearing room was packed. Cameras lined the back wall. The panel of 5 board members sat on a raised dais, looking stern. Dr. Eris Thorne sat at the opposing table. He was polished, wearing a $3,000 suit, looking every bit the expert. Lucas sat next to Evelyn. He wore a suit Evelyn had bought him. It felt tight in the shoulders. He felt like an imposter. Thorne spoke first. He was eloquent. He talked about safety protocols, about clinical trials, about the dangers of backyard engineering. He called Lucas's device a death trap waiting to happen. This man, Thorne pointed a manicured finger at Lucas, has no degree. He fixes transmissions. Would you let a plumber perform heart surgery? This is reckless endangerment of a vulnerable young woman. The crowd murmured. It looked bad. Then, it was their turn. Evelyn's lawyers stood up, but Lucas stopped them. No, Lucas said, standing up. I'll speak. He walked to the podium. He didn't have notes. He just gripped the wood with his scarred hands. Dr. Thorne is right, Lucas said. The room went silent. I don't have a degree. I don't know the Latin names for muscles. I fix cars. He looked at the panel. But in my shop, if I fix a car and it breaks down a mile down the road, I don't get paid. I have to make it right. In the medical industry, if a device causes pain, you prescribe painkillers and bill the insurance for a follow-up. You profit from the failure. Objection, Thorne shouted. I watched my brother die in pain because the approved equipment gave him bed sores and infections. Lucas continued, his voice rising. I built this brace not to make stock prices go up, but because a young girl was crying in my office. I used automotive-grade valves because they react in milliseconds, faster than any medical servo. I used carbon fiber weaving meant for race cars because it's lighter and stronger than what you sell. He turned to the back of the room. But I'm not the expert. The patient is the expert on her own pain. Maya. The double doors opened. Maya Sterling walked in. She wasn't wearing a gown. She was wearing jeans and sneakers. The slim, black, Miller strut was visible over her jeans. She didn't have crutches. She didn't have a cane. She walked down the center aisle. Her gait wasn't perfect. She still had a spinal injury, but it was fluid, strong, and confident. She reached the front. She looked at the panel. For 10 years, Maya said, her voice clear and amplified by the microphone. I haven't been able to carry a cup of coffee across a room. Dr. Thorne told me I had to accept my limits. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small rubber ball. She dropped it. It bounced. She pivoted, a complex, twisting motion that required immense stability, and caught it. Lucas Miller didn't accept my limits, Maya said. He looked at the mechanics of my body, and he built a machine that respected them. I am not in pain. For the first time in my adult life, I am not in pain. She looked at Dr. Thorne. This isn't a death trap. It's my freedom. The room was dead silent. Then, slowly, someone in the back started clapping. It was Sophie, then Evelyn, then the reporters. Soon, the whole room was erupting. The chairman of the board banged his gavel, but he was smiling. Dr. Thorne, unless you have evidence that this device is currently harming the patient, I see no grounds to issue an injunction. In fact, I'd like to see the schematics. Thorne stormed out. Lucas slumped against the podium, his legs shaking. Evelyn was there in a second, wrapping her arms around him. It wasn't a business hug. She buried her face in his neck. You did it, she whispered. You did it. 6 months later, Miller Mobility had moved out of the garage and into a sleek facility, though Lucas insisted on keeping his old grease-stained desk. They had FDA approval for trials. The orders were flooding in from veterans' hospitals and pediatric centers. It was late. The staff had gone home. Lucas was under a prototype chassis, tightening a bolt. Old habits died hard. You know, the CEO shouldn't be under the equipment, a voice said. Lucas slid out on the creeper. Evelyn was standing there. She wasn't wearing a power suit. She was wearing jeans and a soft sweater. She looked relaxed, happy. I'm not the CEO. Lucas wiped his hands. I'm the chief mechanic. You're the CEO. Sophie is upstairs teaching Maya how to code in Python, Evelyn said, leaning against the workbench. They're ordering pizza. Sounds dangerous. Lucas smiled, standing up. He was closer to her now. The familiarity between them had grown into something warm and undeniable. Lucas, Evelyn said, her voice dropping. I sold the penthouse. I bought a place in the hills. It's closer to here. Yeah. Lucas's heart beat faster. I realized I don't want to be in the ivory tower anymore. I like the grease. I like the work. She paused. I like the mechanic. Lucas stepped forward. He took her hand, his rough, calloused hand against her manicured one. This time, he didn't pull away. The mechanic is pretty fond of the billionaire, too, he said softly. Evelyn smiled, and it was the girl next door's smile that she had hidden for decades. She leaned in, and when they kissed, it tasted like cheap wine, success, and a second chance at life. Outside, the sign for Miller's Sterling Bionics flickered on, illuminating the street where a Bentley and a beat-up pickup truck were parked side by side.